Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Life Conference 2019. We are here together tonight because we stand united for life. We're here together tonight because we believe that human life is sacred. And we're here together tonight because we want to be equipped, don't we? Equipped to serve God, equipped to serve each other, equipped to serve the world around us that perhaps doesn't see the truth, perhaps doesn't want to see the truth. Come on in. And equipped to serve those who oppose us as well. No matter how hostile that they may be, and praise God, they are very peaceful out there tonight. But it doesn't matter how hostile they may be, we live and we die to serve them, no matter what the cost may be. Guys, we're here tonight so that human lives can be saved. Amen. We are in the midst of quite a time right now. Not since the passing of Roe v. Wade in 1973 has the issue of abortion been so talked about as it has been lately. In the past 2 to 3 years, we have seen society awaken to the reality of what is happening. From the sale of baby parts on YouTube, to those who stand for life lying along streets, to the images of dismembered babies that are now so readily available just by the click of a mouse button on Google searches, people are waking up to the reality of what has been going on. With 33% of pregnancies being aborted, our Western nations and our leaders in our nations are experiencing and seeing demographic winter as has never been seen before. Even China and Russia have reversed their abortion policies because they see that our nations are in severe socioeconomic trouble because of human depopulation. But this is not just a socioeconomic issue. This is not an issue about women's rights, unless you are talking about the countless girls whose lives are extinguished every single day in abortion. And the majority of them is girls, are girls, by choice. This is not an issue about equality, unless you consider that the vast majority of abortion clinics in North America are set up to target African American women, and as Margaret Sanger pushed for, to reduce the number of African Americans in America. This is not even a political issue, as it's often said to be. One of the reasons why us as Christians, why we're so reluctant to get involved, though it's a political issue, it's said. Well, it's not just a political issue, even though it is fought on the political stage. Make no mistake, this is a moral issue. And though we live in a society that is lost and wandering around in the darkness, it's a moral abyss. Still, people know that it is wrong to kill human beings. So here we are, united for life, ready to be equipped to save life. And we will be equipped. A few guidelines that I want to urge for you to follow. Law enforcement has urged for us to follow. We obviously have some opposition here tonight. We want to urge you to show them the kind of grace and the kind of kindness that they ought to be shown. We are all created in the image of God. Remember that we are called to be peacemakers. We are called to be humble. We are called to be gentle. And maybe the hardest of all, we are called to be patient. But remember also that what you do and say here tonight and tomorrow will leave impressions that may have eternal consequences. If you speak the truth, speak it in love. If you are in here tonight and you don't agree with the pro-life position, that's fine, and we welcome you. And we hope that you feel welcome. We hope that you see in people here tonight the kind of love and the kind of grace that makes you ask, where did they get it from? What is it that's different about these people? And if you want to know, then ask someone, and you will get an answer. But we ask that you be respectful, and that you hear what's being said, and then just take it home and think about it. If there are any disruptions tonight, we will let the authorities handle things, and then we will continue. Well, tonight we are privileged to have with us, he will deny it, I'm sure, out of humility, but one of the world's best pro-life apologists, Mike Spencer. Yeah. Mike has served as a pastor for 23 years before joining the staff at Lite Training Institute in 2012. He serves there as the Midwest Director of Training. You're not in the Midwest tonight, you're in the far West, but thanks for coming here. Yeah. Mike has a burden to awaken the church to the plight of mothers facing unplanned pregnancies and to the little ones that they carry. He travels extensively throughout the United States, speaking as the keynote at banquets and conferences, and addresses thousands of students every year on high school campuses, just like this one, and at universities as well. Mike is a gifted speaker. He is much sought after as a communicator. And you know what? He brings a pastor's heart here tonight to what is often an emotional and a divisive issue, abortion. And he brings a heart and a viewpoint that will help us in a way that's both gracious and is compelling. He's married to Barb, and they have 5 children, and a daughter that they adopted from Guatemala, including a daughter they adopted from Guatemala, and they currently reside in Salina, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight Mike Spencer.
So glad to be with you. It is my honor. Can you hear me? Okay. Just great to be here. I get to travel a lot, as Pastor Noel said, which is a great blessing in my work. But it's really only been the last couple of years, last 2 to 3 years, that I've been coming out here to Tacoma, Seattle, Portland, and getting out to the northwestern states. And I can tell you that I'm angry with my parents for raising me in the Midwest. It is absolutely beautiful here, and I just feel so grateful to be back. I want to thank Pastor Noel and the other churches, the many churches that have come together tonight to host this event. You know, that in itself is a great testament to what God is doing. Unfortunately, as you know, the church has been very reticent to speak up for those who have no voice for many, many decades, which is a huge part of the reason we have legalized abortion in our land today. And it's great to see that that's changing. Now, we would certainly like to see change more than it is, but this is a great thing, and I'm just very honored to be a part of this. As you know, our nation is bitterly divided over the issue of abortion. And in fact, it appears that the bitter divide that we see is present even here tonight as you walk in through the gauntlet, so to speak, there with our opposition. We often hear that people never change their mind. You know, people don't change their mind on the subject of abortion. And I'm here to tell you tonight that that's absolutely not true, and I'm proof of it. I was on the other side of this issue. I grew up in a very good but a non-Christian home in Detroit. I defaulted to no particular fault of my parents, I want to say, but I defaulted late in my high school years to a, kind of a cultural pro-choice position and into my early 20s. But that all changed. And what happened was I came to faith in Christ. And that was in September of 1983. I was 21 years old at the time. About 8 or 9 months after coming to faith in Christ, I saw the movie The Silent Screen. Some of you will remember that film. It had just come out in 1984. And I saw with my own eyes what abortion does to little girls and boys, and I couldn't believe it. And it impacted me so deeply. So I've been on both sides of this issue. And I'm grateful that people do change their minds. G.K. Chesterton said this. He said, merely having an open mind is nothing. The object of opening the mind, as of opening the mouth, is to shut it again on something solid. Otherwise, it end up like a city sewer rejecting nothing. And I think that's good advice for all of us, regardless of what side of the issue we're on here this evening. I have two goals tonight, two things that I want to cover. The first thing that I want to do is I want to address the question, what is it that makes us valuable as human beings? What is it that makes us valuable? Really, at the heart of the abortion debate today, what we're really debating, as Pastor Noel said, we're not really debating choice or women's rights or reproductive freedom. What we're really debating is the question, who counts as one of us? And that really is, it's not a question that's asked often, it's not articulated often, but that really is at the heart of this debate, who counts as one of us? So I want to give good attention to that question. The second thing that I want to do tonight is I want to speak directly to the dehumanizing effects of abortion, of legalized abortion, on the unborn, on their mothers and fathers, on the abortionist himself and those who support his grisly trade, and then on Christians who remain silent during times of moral crisis. So that's where we're going to go here this evening. I want to start with a quick story for you. On August the 18th of 2016, news outlets reported a disturbing story about a 4-year-old Arkansas girl who had been taken into protective custody after having been zip-tied to her bed as a punishment from her mother and her mother's boyfriend. The malnourished child was found with bruising on her legs, a black eye, a swollen cheek, and scars on her back. Now, as deplorable as that story is, it's hardly noteworthy in a world where child abuse cases are a dime a dozen. But what elevated this story to a national news item is that when police asked this little 4-year-old girl her name, she answered, "My name is Idiot." Upon further investigation, it was discovered that the mother's boyfriend had called this precious little 4-year-old girl idiot so often she actually thought it was her name. Now, it is difficult to imagine a story that could more forcefully demonstrate the dark capacity of the sinful, corrupted human heart and the dystopian society that it is producing. We find everybody in this room, again, regardless of what side of this issue we're on, I think all of us find, if I may be so bold, we all find this story repugnant because we recognize the innocence of that 4-year-old girl and the dignity of that little girl as a human being. We feel her pain. Throughout history, the relentless effort to dehumanize humans by relabeling them has spawned numerous and unspeakable atrocities, such as slavery, rape, and massive genocidal campaigns. Menacing words like rats, useless eaters, and chattel made possible the ovens of Auschwitz, the leg irons of slavery, and a host of other evil injustices. Joseph Fletcher, the radical father of the modern bioethics movement, also found the idiot label useful for his purposes. He referred to the profoundly mentally handicapped in this way and brazenly declared, quote, "They are not human." Now, as the father of a severely mentally handicapped daughter, I take exception to this euphemistic name-calling. 16th century English jurist and scholar John Selden once stated, quote, "Syllables govern the world." American poet Tristram Gilbert wrote, quote, "Whoever controls the language controls the culture." The rhetorical question, what's in a name, assumes the answer, not much. But when the name obliterates human value and sets the stage for child abuse and for murder, the answer is everything. Whether the denigrating name is spoken by evil mothers and their evil boyfriends, or by evil dictators, the consequences are devastating. So let me give attention to the first thing that I want to deal with or address here this evening, and this is that question. What is it that makes us as human beings valuable? Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this trying to convince you of the ontological human nature of the unborn child at the earliest stages of development, because again, whatever side of the issue you're on tonight, I'm assuming that we're pretty much agreed. I mean, the science of human embryology has really settled this question for us. We know when human life begins. It begins at fertilization or at conception. This really is not being debated in academic circles. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that abortion is not being debated in academic circles. But the ontological human nature of the unborn child is really not up for grabs. It's not being debated in these circles, okay? Ward Kisher, and I can give you, I've got a dozen or more here with me tonight. I'll give you just one as an example. Ward Kisher is a PhD, a human embryologist at the University of Arizona. And he said this, quote, every human embryologist in the world knows that the life of the new individual human being begins at fertilization. It is scientific fact. We know when human life begins. This is, by the way, the consensus among human embryologists. Good luck finding a university-level textbook on anatomy or physiology or on biology that says otherwise. The full humanity of the early embryo, again, is a settled issue. In fact, the full humanity of the early embryo, and again, in its earliest stages of development, is conceded to, even by prominent pro-choice philosophers like David Boone, Peter Singer, Mary Elizabeth Williams, and many, many others, and in fact, by many abortionists. So Peter Singer, the radical ethicist at the chairman of the ethics department at Princeton University, said this. He said, there's no doubt that from the first moments of its existence, an embryo conceived from human sperm and egg is a human being. This is one of the nation's leading abortion defenders and proponents of infanticide as well. And yet he concedes the full humanity of the unborn child. Let me give you a couple of other examples. This is Leroy Carhart, a very notorious late-term abortionist here in the United States. He said, quote, I think that it is a baby, and I use that term with the patient. Here's another one, Curtis Boyd. Coldly asks, you can see this on YouTube, he's being interviewed. Am I killing? Yes, I am. I know that. Here's another one. Arthur Morris. Quote, and this is an abortionist again. He says, quote, life begins with fertilization and abortion is legalized destruction of life. We tell her, referring to the client, exactly like it is. When they abort, they will be aborting a small baby. This is settled science. From the moment that you were conceived in your mother's womb, and by the way, I hope you'll come tomorrow to the workshop, because I'm going to do more with this tomorrow than I will do tonight with this particular part of my talk. But from the moment that you were conceived in your mother's womb, you were a distinct, living, and whole human being. And very quickly, by distinct, I mean you weren't your mom. You were in your mom. You were dependent on your mom for blood, nutrients, oxygen, and the protection of her womb. But you had your own DNA that was distinct from your mother's and your father's. You had a gender, a race, and a blood type that were potentially all different than your mother's. You were a distinct human being. Not only that, you were living. And all I mean by that is that you were alive and growing. That the things that define living organisms were present in you at that early single-cell zygote stage. Things like metabolizing food for growth, responding to stimuli. Okay, these are the things that define living organisms, and they were all present in you at that earliest stage of development, replacing your dying cells as well. You were never a sperm cell, and you were never an egg cell. Those were functionally parts of other beings, namely your parents. And when those two cells came together, you came to be. And by the way, you were never a fertilized egg. In the science of human embryology, there is no such thing as a fertilized egg. Now, you will find that term in university-level textbooks, but it's technically wrong, because the moment the sperm and the egg come together and fertilization takes place, you don't have an egg anymore, and you don't have a sperm anymore. They have divided themselves, given their constituents over to a new entity, namely a little girl or a little boy. So you were never a fertilized egg. You were never a sperm cell, and you were never an egg cell. Randy Alcorn says it this way, there's a name some of you may be familiar with, a great pro-life author. He said, something non-human doesn't become human by getting older and bigger. Whatever is human from the beginning. And this is 7th grade level science, isn't it? Okay? And again, the national debate over abortion now is not over the humanity of the unborn child. This is relatively settled science. And to be honest with you, the other side used to debate this. You know, leading up to Roe v. Wade, and for the next 20 years after Roe, after 1973, when people would defend abortion, they would typically say, well, it's not a baby, it's a blob of tissue, or it's a mass of unwanted cells, or it's a product of conception. But I can tell you, I don't hear that very often on university campuses. I do hear it some. But what I hear now is, you know what, you're right, Mike, it's not, or you're right, Mike, it is a little boy or a girl. It is alive, it is growing, it is human. I'll grant you all of that, but it's not a, say it, it's not a person. And this is a rhetorical trick. This is a legal trick. And by the way, it's an old trick, isn't it? Because we've seen this before. We are just recycling old bigotries. Science can speak to one's ontological nature. It can say, this is a human being, this is a giraffe. But what science can't do is speak to one's value. So we've got to go to this question for that. What is it that makes us valuable as human beings? Are we valuable because of what we can do? Or are we valuable simply because of the kind of thing that we are? Well, I think I know where most of you in the room stand on that. Abortion supporters, and again, if you're here tonight, and I know some of you are, I'm not saying this to provoke you, but you did come to a pro-life talk. And I'm going to be direct, and I hope that you will be mature enough and objective enough to at least consider this case. And ask yourself, is it sound? The debate over abortion, again, is not a debate ultimately over choice or reproductive freedom or women's rights. It is a debate over who counts as homeless and what makes us valuable. Abortion supporters argue that only certain people matter, and only if they measure up to some test or some standard that the powerful establish for the weak. You see a conflict of interest in that? That people who weigh 150, 200 pounds get to decide for people who weigh only ounces, perhaps, whether or not they matter. Whereas they used to say it's not a baby, it's a blob of tissue, now they're saying, yes, it is a baby, but it's not a person. And what they've done is they've divorced humanness from personhood. And we know historically that every time this happens, disaster follows. That people, innocent people, die. And by the way, you should note that there is no consensus among our so-called pro-choice opponents. One abortion supporter says, well, it's a heartbeat that makes you valuable. The other person says, no, it's brainwaves. The other person says, no, it's sentience or self-awareness or wantedness or normalcy. But if you notice, they don't seem to agree on this. It's as if they are, and I don't mean to be unfair to them, but it's as if they're reaching into the sky and arbitrarily pulling out some test, some standard that they think ought to determine for the whole world whether or not they live or die. Peter Singer says it's awareness. It's being self-aware that makes you valuable. David Boone says, no, it's having desires. The actress Ellen Barkin says, no, it's the ability to speak. They can't even agree. Nancy Pearcey, some of you may be familiar with that name. She just came out recently with a phenomenal book, one of the best books I've ever read, literally. Titled, Nancy Pearcey's kind of a modern-day blend of C.S. Lewis and Francis Schaeffer, if that name's unfamiliar to you. She's brilliant. And in her book, she said, the book's titled Love Thy Body. And she said this, she said, quote, the fact that bioethics comes to such wildly conflicting definitions of personhood shows that the concept is virtually impossible to define once it is cut off from the sheer fact of being biologically human. Look, if you're a human, you are a person. It's real simple. It's real simple. When human value is rooted in some subjective, arbitrary test, like heartbeat, like brain waves, like wantedness, the foundation for human equality is destroyed. You cannot chip away at human equality and at the end of the day have anything left of it. This is an all or nothing proposition. You can't say, well, I'm for human equality except for women. The minute you say except, you're not for human equality. I'm for human equality except for Hispanics. Well, then you're not for human equality. How about this? I'm for human equality except for people located on that side of the birth canal. People still in the womb. Well, once you do that, are you not hearing me back there?
A little closer.
Okay. Is that good? I'm a little guy with a big mouth. I shouldn't even need the microphone, right? Once you chip away at human equality, there's nothing left of it. This is an all or nothing proposition. And this is why I love our position. Because our position says every human being matters. Black, white, rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, born and unborn. Everybody matters. We don't care what your sexual preferences are. We don't care what your politics are. We don't care what your skin color is, your gender is. We don't care what you identify as. We don't care what pronouns you use. You matter, and we think you deserve legal protection at every stage of your development. That's human equality.
Amen.
Amen. Christopher Casor, a pro-life author who wrote a phenomenal book called The Ethics of Abortion, said this. He said, a vision of personhood that rests on the arbitrary decisions of the powerful against the weak cannot be in conformity with the demands of justice or equality. And he's exactly right. Now again, I'm not trying to be provocative, but I am telling you, at its very core, the so-called pro-choice position is a position of bigotry. It is a position of discrimination. Again, it says some people matter if they measure up to my standards or my tests, or some standards or tests, some Congress or some court establishment. And if not, then we treat them like vermin. Every time humanness is divorced from personhood, people die. Innocent people die. Jerome Lejeune is a name that might be familiar to some of you. He's the very celebrated geneticist who said this. He said at Nuremberg, the horrible affirmation that a prisoner or a Jew is not a man, thus one can exploit him, had been condemned and was believed forever. But yet that same twisted notion reappears today, modernized, disinfected, and miniaturized. An embryo is not a man or a person, thus, ... we can abort him. Ideas, it has been said, have consequences, and bad ideas have victims. And nowhere is that more true than in the Holocaust on the unborn in America today. To quote Nancy Pearcey again, she adds, when personhood theory, this would be this idea that you're a human but you're not a person, okay? When personhood theory, you're a human but you're not a person, okay? When personhood theory, she writes, determines human value, somebody will ultimately have to draw the line legally to define who qualifies as a person. But without the objective criteria, the concept will be defined by raw power. Whoever has the most power, namely the state, will decide who qualifies as a person. But suppose the state says that women don't qualify as persons. You see the problem here. There are only 4 differences, and I'm going to give more attention to this tomorrow, but very quickly, there are only 4 differences between the adult you are today and the embryo that you once were, and not one of these 4 differences justifies killing you at any stage of your development. Certainly not at that early stage of your development. And here they are. Just remember the acronym SLED, S-L-E-D. The S stands for size. Yes, embryos, fetuses, are smaller than newborns or even adults, but why does that matter? Men are generally larger than women, but we don't give men greater rights for that reason. Nor do we justify killing women for that reason. Size can't be the determining factor. How about the L? The L stands for level of development. We hear these arguments from the other side all the time. Well, the baby doesn't have a heartbeat yet, or it doesn't have brain waves yet, or it hasn't reached viability yet, or whatever these level, or its development is such that it's not desirable, it has Down syndrome or whatever. And so we can abort. I have a daughter who's 19 years old, who's operating mentally, functioning mentally at about a 4-year-old level. She's born with cerebral palsy. She's severely mentally handicapped. If you have to reach some magical level of development before you matter, before you're a person and not a mere human, where you deserve legal protection, then my daughter Catherine doesn't measure up and she doesn't count as a human being. Now that's a repugnant thought to anybody with an operating conscience. But this is where this goes. The E stands for environment or location. You were in the womb and now you're out of the womb. But how does where you are determine what you are? How could an 8-inch journey down a birth canal, a mother's birth canal, magically transform you from a mere human to a person who's deserving now of legal protection? So you've got size, level of development, environment, or location, and then the D is for degree of dependence. Again, we hear from the other side, well, the baby's dependent upon the mother. Yeah, 2-year-olds are dependent upon their mothers. Dependency can't be the thing that renders us disposable. If it is, then what do we do with conjoined twins? Now, more can be said, more will be said tomorrow. That's a little wet your whistle, hooking to come back tomorrow, right? Now, conversely, let me say this. Clinton Wilcox serves on our staff at Lite Training Institute. He's a brilliant man, brilliant thinker. He said this. He said, the question of when human life begins is not a difficult one to answer. It only becomes difficult if you want to justify killing people. He's right. He's exactly right. Conversely, the pro-life view, our view, I say ours, the majority of the room here anyway, teaches that every human being has intrinsic moral worth at every stage of their development, and therefore deserves legal protection at every stage of development. I tell my opponents on university campuses, high school campuses, wherever I go, the reason I oppose abortion is because I think you deserve to be legally protected at every stage of your development. Is that so bad? Your value came to be when you came to be. And according to the science of human embryology, that wasn't at birth, it wasn't at viability, it wasn't at quickening, it was at conception or at fertilization. We are more than our parts, more than our functions. Something else defines us, something internal, and it's our human nature. And we have it in equal measure. I mean, you can look around in this room. We've got two different genders, we've got different body shapes, we've got different hairstyles. Some of you have hair, some of us didn't need it. Right? But what we share in equal measure in this room is human nature. If you're bigger than me, you don't have more of it. If you're smaller than me, you would probably be in 5th grade, and I don't have more of it than you, okay? We have this in equal measure. That has to be the foundation for human equality. Otherwise, there's no such thing as equality. Your identity remains the same throughout time and change. You're the same person now as you were then in your mother's womb. And I don't mean you look the same. And I don't mean that your value system is the same, or that your functional abilities are the same, or your personality is the same. Of course, not all of those things and a million other things have changed about you. But one thing has stayed the same. Your identity. You're the same person now as you were then. If you're deserving legal protection at 50 years old or 30 years old, then you have always been and always will be deserving of legal protection unless you subscribe to the popular so-called pro-choice view that says you're only valuable if you measure up. In other words, you're only valuable based on what you can do. We're not human doings. We are human beings. We are valuable simply because of the kind of thing that we are. We are not instrumentally valuable. We are intrinsically valuable. This is, again, the only unshakable foundation for human equality, our human nature. I love saying this, because I know this flies in the face of everything we hear in the media, in Hollywood films, on university campuses. The narrative that is pushed and peddled everywhere we go today is that we're haters, we're waging a war on women, we're stealing reproductive rights from women. Well, let me say this. It is our position that is inclusive and tolerant. As I said earlier, we're the ones that say everybody has a right to life, that everyone deserves legal protection. I'll defend that all day long. Will you? Amen? Amen. Let me turn a corner here and give the rest of my attention here to this second issue that I want to address tonight, and that is, and I'm going to say more about the full humanity of the unborn child and dealing with the full personhood of the unborn child tomorrow. I do hope you'll come back, but let me move on and deal with something that I won't be dealing with, at least not in large measure tomorrow, and that is the dehumanizing effects of legalized abortion in our culture. And I want to break this down, and I want to talk about the dehumanizing effects on the unborn, on their mothers, their fathers, the abortionist himself, and those who support his trade, and then on the body of Christ that remains silent in the face of this moral crisis. In a culture where abortion is both legal and common, there is a sense in which no one escapes the dehumanizing effects of the abortionist's knife. His menacing fingers and his torturous tools of death reach far beyond the womb, leaving virtually no one untouched. Abortion, first and foremost, dehumanizes, of course, the unborn child. Consider the name calling of our abortion-supporting opponents, who for decades have downgraded unborn children with cunning words like blob of tissue, product of conception, and parasite. In recent years, these words have been added to with a fresh batch of sanitized labels, such as uterine contents and medical risk. This verbal bullying, as you know, has contributed to the deaths of over 60 million dead children and counting, and millions of post-aborted women and men whose lives have been deeply scarred by their abortion decisions. Some, no doubt, in this room this evening. And I thank God for grace. I want to say more about that here in closing. But our society has expressed moral outrage over a 4-year-old being called idiot and then horribly abused might be convincing, if not for the fact that 4 years earlier, that same little girl could have been dismembered, decapitated, or disemboweled in her mother's womb with no outcry from the media. After all, the moral distance between the term medical waste and dismemberment in the womb is not that far from the moral distance between calling a 4-year-old idiot and zip tying her to her bed. Former slave and celebrated abolitionist Frederick Douglass, a hero of mine, one of my favorite authors, writing of the brutality visited upon slaves by their slaveholders 150 plus years ago, said that slaveholders abused, raped, and even murdered their slaves, quote, with almost as much impunity as upon the deck of a pirate ship. He went on to say that there was no secret in 1860 about what was happening on the plantations. In fact, when slaves would escape, their slave owners would run ads in the newspaper brazenly offering rewards for their return and describing their slave as last seen having worn a neck collar and leg irons with scars on his or her back. This was advertising, shamelessly advertising the newspaper. But unlike the brutal treatment of slaves, the brutal treatment of the unborn by abortion is well hidden from the majority of Americans. When it comes to the crime scene, abortion clinics have gotten real good at cleaning up after themselves. As a result, most people in our culture have never seen what abortion does to little girls and boys, which often profoundly cripples their response and their concern for abortion's victims. Abortion is the intentional and unjust killing of innocent human beings at their most vulnerable stage of development in the most barbaric manner imaginable. Abortion dismembers, decapitates, disembowels, and burns little girls and boys from their mother's wombs in the patriotic name of choice. The method of killing that we call abortion is the great dehumanizer indeed, and precious innocent children are abortion's primary victims. The butchered bodies of tiny boys and girls serve as the irrefutable evidence that those waging a war on women are not pro-lifers, as we're so often told, but rather the real extremists are those who call precious preborn children demeaning names so that they can justify tearing them limb from their mother's wombs. You know, it is easy, isn't it, to pontificate about a woman's right to choose when you never have to breathe in the repugnant smell of death or hold abortion's victims in your hands. I did just that in 1991. I was pastoring a church in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the time, and an acquaintance of ours lifted a little black baby girl from an abortion clinic dumpster in Detroit, Michigan, my hometown where I grew up. I grew up in a suburb in the Detroit area. He lifted this little girl who was about 5 months of gestation. She filled my hand. She was perfectly formed, beautiful little girl, although her skin was radically discolored because she had been burned by a saline solution from her mother's body. And I held that lifeless, beautiful little girl in my hands. My wife did. And I will tell you, I hear all of the cliches and all of the sloganeering from those on the other side. My body, my choice. Don't like abortion, don't have one. You're a man, you have no right to speak to the issue. Every child will want a child. But when you hold in your hands the product of choice, a dead little girl, all of a sudden, all of those cliches, all of that sloganeering disintegrates under the weight of that child. And oh, how I would love to take that little girl to high school and university campuses throughout the United States that I go to and hold her lifeless, cold little body out to my audiences and say, you tell me that this is choice. You tell me that this is reproductive freedom. Killing children is reproductive freedom? You see, even when we see the images of aborted children, they are still missing from our pro-life events because their bodies aren't there. And it's easy to discredit what you see on the screen. Though I'm not suggesting that that's not a powerful tool. Greg Cunningham from the Center for Bioethical Reform in California said this: everyone knows intuitively that abortion is evil. But almost no one knows how evil it is until they see it, because abortion is unspeakably evil. I thank God for my first pastor when I came to faith in Christ in 1983, who, by the way, became my father-in-law. Right? Married into royalty. I thank God for Vernon Peterson and for the Royal Oak Missionary Church in Detroit, Michigan, that 8 or 9 months into my newfound faith showed me the silent scream. And Joe Jacobs, the youth pastor, who participated, in fact, led that in my family. I walked in considering my brand new Christian, but considering myself still pro-choice, and I walked out an hour later forever changed. Because when you see these victims, when you hear only about them, it's one thing, but when you see these victims, and you see the work of that abortionist, it's a whole different ballgame. I think you know where I'm going to. I'm going to show you what abortion is to children. Now, I want to say a couple of things about this. The video I'm going to show you is less than a minute long. You will not see an abortion being performed, nor will you see any genitalia if you have younger people here. I don't think we do. But it is graphic, and it is difficult to see. And I want to just quickly contextualize this. There are a lot of things in life that we need to see that are unpleasant to see. I mean, imagine teaching today's 16-year-olds about the Twin Towers being attacked in 2001, but not letting them see the video. Or imagine trying to talk to them about the ovens of Auschwitz without them seeing the videos, or the killing fields of the Khmer Rouge without seeing them. There are things that are unpleasant that the body of Christ needs to see, and that the body of Christ needs to show others, in the spirit of the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 5:11, who said, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but expose them. And if abortion is not an evil deed of darkness, a fruitless deed of darkness, I don't know what is. Now, I want to say a couple of other things. You don't have to watch this. You can easily opt out of this portion of my talk by simply averting your gaze or closing your eyes. There's no audio narration. It's simply a musical track. If you choose not to watch, you're not going to hear anything described. And the last thing I want to say is this. I'm sure I'm talking to some here tonight who have had abortions or have been responsible for abortion decisions. And I want you tonight to know tonight that I was not invited here, nor did I come here tonight with any desire to heap abuse or guilt or to conjure up bad memories for anyone. That's not where my heart's at tonight, and I hope that's obvious to all of you. If you've had an abortion, or you have been responsible for an abortion decision, I'm happy to tell you what I hope you're hearing on a weekly basis in your church. And that is that there is no sin, including the sin of abortion, that is so evil or so bad that God's grace is not greater still. We go all the way back to the Old Testament, Isaiah 53, that promises that the Messiah would come, and that by his stripes you and I would be healed. And that's not talking about physical healing. We all die. That's talking about spiritual healing. And then we can go to 1 John in the New Testament, chapter 1, verse 9, that promises that if we confess our sins to Christ, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. But it gets even better than that. Jesus doesn't merely promise to forgive you of the sin of abortion, or of any other sin for that matter. The ground is even at the foot of the cross, right? He promises to put you back together emotionally. He doesn't just promise to forgive you. If you've had an abortion, he promises to restore you, to make you whole, to restore you to ministry. That's a sweet promise. So know that as I show this to you. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. If you have never seen abortion in all of its ugliness, I'm pleading with you tonight to watch this. We're going to dim the lights, and Caitlin is going to set that up for us at this time. I know that's difficult to see, and I'm sure some of you are seeing that tonight for the first time, and I take no pleasure in showing it. But that is what Planned Parenthood does not want your children to see. That is what Planned Parenthood does not want your grandchildren to see. And because we don't see this in our culture, it makes it very easy for the other side to push and peddle their narrative that we're waging a war on women. The only war being waged is what you just saw on that screen right here. That is what abortion does to little girls and boys. And that is why this is not just another issue. And And that is why this is not first and foremost a political issue that our churches should be washing their hands of. This is a moral, spiritual issue that has been politicized, and every moral, spiritual issue is eventually politicized. The redefining of marriage, war, slavery, all of these issues are politicized. That does not render them off limits for our pulpits. This is not just another issue. This is the defining moral issue of our day. But it's not just children whom the abortion industry dehumanizes. It also dehumanizes women. Abortion displaces the God-given maternal instinct, thereby transforming the womb into a bloody battlefield and pitting mothers against their own offspring. This dehumanization of women was on full display at a rally in Dublin, Ireland, in the fall of 2017. Some of you, I'm sure, saw this when American prostitute Kate McGrew, speaking on behalf of the, quote, Sex Workers Alliance of Ireland, advocated for the legalization of abortion by leading a large audience of women and young girls in the very noxious chant, quote, hoes, meaning whores, hoes need abortion, hoes need abortion. It was sick to watch, heartbreaking to see this. No, abortion does not liberate women, it enslaves them. For decades, legalized abortion has been slickly marketed and packaged as empowerment for women. Ironically, the very movement that claims to champion equality for women views women as inherently incomplete, as lacking something that they believe needs to be shored up before they're equal to men. This, they argue, can only be accomplished by granting mothers the power to impose lethal force on their children. Planned Parenthood states this on their website, quote, denying women the ability to choose to end an unwanted pregnancy under safe and legal conditions is a violation of human rights and flies in the face of the empowerment agenda. Lila Rose, of Live Action, great pro-lifer, confronts the notion that women need something a little extra, namely abortion, before they can measure up to men. She said this, quote, the biological reality of our bodies is not a threat to our freedom. The idea that women need the same ability as men to not carry a child for 9 months is absurd. On the contrary, that women can carry children is an ability, an amazing gift. It is not something to be mocked, controverted, and disabled. I think that's well said. Ladder couldn't be more right. And Jeffrey Ventrella of the Alliance of Defending Freedom says this. He said, when the most dangerous place for a young person's day is in his mother's womb, that is a work of the devil. So true. When it comes to abortion, empowering women, the devil is in the details, as expressed in a very, very heart-wrenching story that was told to me about 3 years ago in Michigan after a speaking event in a church. And I shared the story, by the way, with this woman's permission, although I have changed her name. Laura's childhood innocence was stolen by a string of her mother's perverted boyfriends, who repeatedly molested and raped her. Her own mother turned a blind eye to this abuse, and in 1977, at only 12 years of age, Laura became pregnant. Realizing the legal consequences and the relational upheaval that this would inflict upon her mother's relationships, at 5 months of pregnancy, Laura's mother put her in a car and drove her to a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic. Laura had no idea where she was going or what was about to transpire, but she does remember having to sign something at the tender age of 12 in that clinic. Before long, this little girl, who should have been home playing with her neighborhood friends, was instead lying on a surgical table experiencing tremendous physical and emotional pain while her mother sat next to the abortionist, unfeelingly narrating in real time the horrific details of her abortion to her. Nothing could be added to this story to make it any worse, except for the pitiful fact that this scenario was repeated 2 more times during Laura's childhood. 2 more times she became pregnant by her mother's sick, demented boyfriends and underwent forced abortions. As Laura pointed out to me, had abortion been illegal during that time, her abuse would likely have ended. The abusers would have been locked up, and her first child would be alive. Instead, the only empowerment that was realized was by the men who raped her and by the abortionists who killed her children for financial profit. Laura's story is living proof that abortion does not empower women makes them victims. For all of its bluster, big abortion's victims are those that it claims to champion. Let me move on. Abortion dehumanizes not only children, not only their mothers, but their fathers as well. Abortion dehumanizes men. And this is observed in a couple of ways. First of all, Roe v. Wade has fundamentally stripped good and responsible men, or good and responsible fathers, the legal right to protect and to provide for the children that they help create. I have witnessed and counseled young fathers outside of abortion clinics who wept and pleaded with their wives and their girlfriends for the lives of their unborn children, but in most cases, to no avail. In a world that cries foul at even the least injustice, or even the least perceived injustice with respect to gender equality, men are clearly not equal before the law when it comes to protecting their children from abortion. They are, in fact, denied every and all legal rights as fathers. But, conversely, if the mother chooses life, then the father is legally obligated for the next 18 years to pay child support. Now, don't misunderstand me. He should have to pay it. And if he doesn't pay it, he should be hunted down and prosecuted. But you see the inequity here. This lawful disenfranchisement of stripping men of their fundamental right and their moral duty to protect their children is a social castration of manhood and a scourge on the family and on society. A second way that abortion dehumanizes men is by attacking male leadership in the home and in society. Abortion reduces men to moral Houdinis, to escape artists, by providing cover for those who would prefer to use women to satisfy their carnal lusts and then squirm and wiggle out of their most solemn duty to protect and to provide for the children that they helped create. In this respect, the woman's so-called right to abortion becomes a man's right to perpetual childhood, or worse, as was evidenced in the story of Laura and her abusers. In short, abortion is the gift that keeps on giving to soulless men who use women and then refuse to take on adult responsibilities. It should be no surprise to any of us that in a culture where more and more men, thankfully not all, but where more and more men are viewing women as nothing more than a repository for their animal passions, that they would in turn view the children that they have created with as much disdain. And of course, abortion dehumanizes the abortionist as well. In his brutal treatment of the children that he kills, the abortionist dehumanizes himself. In the booklet, Thoughts Upon the African Slave Trade, written by John Newton, the former slave trader turned Christian and the author of perhaps our most beloved Christian hymn, Amazing Grace, he describes in that little booklet the self-inflicted, soul-eating effects of brutalizing other human beings for personal gain. Now, he's talking about slavery, but you'll see how this applies. He says, quote, "I know of no method of getting money, not even of that of robbing for it upon the highway, which has so direct a tendency to efface the moral sense, to rob the heart of every gentle and humane disposition, and to harden like steel against all impressions of sensibility." So too, to tear children, little girls and boys, limb from their mother's wombs, is to efface the moral sense and to rob the heart of every gentle and humane disposition. Case in point, the notorious late-term abortionist Warren Hearn, apparently robbed of every gentle and humane disposition, candidly refers to his abortion procedure in this way, quote, "We have reached the point in this particular technology where there is no possibility of denial of an act of destruction by the operator. It is before one's eyes. The sensations of dismemberment flow through the forceps like an electric current." Do you hear what he's saying? This is an abortionist defending what he does and yet candidly describing it. Apparently, the powerful sensations of dismemberment, to borrow his words, that flow through his forceps like an electric current as he mutilates his little victims, have not been powerful enough to awaken his own conscience. It appears that his moral nerve endings have been hardened like steel against all impressions of sensibility. Now, I could go on. Numerous other disturbing examples of the soul-eating effects of abortion on the abortionist himself or on herself could be given, but you get the point. The abortionist doesn't merely ravage his victims. is inevitable. Frederick Douglass, to quote him again, said, "No man can put a chain about the ankle of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened about his own. Finally, it is not just the unborn, or their mothers, or their fathers, or the abortionists, or his supporters who are dehumanized by legalized abortion. Pastors and Christians, scores of them, who remain silent during times of moral crisis are as well. They are dehumanized as well. Now, I want to be very clear. I was a pastor for 23 years. I loved being a pastor. I didn't leave bummed out, burned out, or pushed out. I love being a pastor. I miss it. I miss it greatly. My wife is my witness to that fact. And I not only love being a pastor, I love the church. For all of the mocking that the body of Christ endures, for all of the self-loathing spirit that seems to have gripped even those within, many within the church, there's nothing in my mind like the body of Christ. I love the body of Christ. Came to faith in Christ in 1983, Saturday night, September 10th, the next morning I'm in church for the first time as a Christian. And I fell in love with Barbara, Jesus, and the body of Christ in September of 1983. It's a pretty good month for me. I love the church. I know it's not perfect. And I know there are many, many churches out there that are actually apostate, and they're nothing short of an absolute scandal to the name of Jesus Christ. I know that. But when I defend the church, I'm not defending those churches. I'm defending the bride, the real bride. So I want you to know I love the church. We are the hope of the world. I don't say it arrogantly, because nothing good that we don't do anything good. It's Christ working through us. We love because he first loved us. Romans makes that very clear. 1 John makes that very clear. But you think about it. Who starts the soup kitchens, the rescue missions, the women's shelters, the orphanages, the adoption agencies? If it weren't for, we hear it from the other side, the pro-choice side, let's talk about the messed up foster care system as if that justifies killing children. But the reality is, as messed up as the foster care system is, imagine what it would look like if Christian families withdrew from it. Because there's thousands of Christian families throughout our land who've opened their homes and their hearts to children in need. We're running that foster care system. Slavery in England and in America is no more. Why? Because of the fiery opposition of Christians who saw human value in everybody and stood up for them. Stood up for our black brothers and sisters. I am proud of our rich family tree, and I love the church, and I'd love to go on and on and on, but I won't. Now, having said that, something has gone terribly, terribly wrong in the body of Christ. That so many have managed to remain so unmoved for so long regarding the plight of so many of our little brothers and sisters, our unborn brothers and sisters, who are dehumanized by abortion. This is a great tragedy. A great, great tragedy. When it comes to how the unborn are viewed in our society, the abortion industry and the majority of our churches have an awful lot in common. You see, for the abortionist, he looks at the unborn child and sees that child as miserably inconvenient. And that becomes his justification to dismember, decapitate, disembowel. So too, the vast majority of churches in America, Catholic and Protestant, see the unborn child as miserably inconvenient, not worth speaking up for on some level. The abortionist says this child is so inconvenient we can justify aborting them, we can justify dismembering them. And the church has said they're inconvenient, so we can justify doing absolutely nothing as the church dismembers them. This is our Goliath. This is our civil rights movement. This is it. If you're waiting for something else, it's here. This is our Goliath. Now I'm thankful, truly thankful for pastors and priests who do champion the cause of the unborn, who do speak up, who thunder from their pulpits, who blow Ezekiel's trumpet and do it proudly and boldly and compassionately. I thank God for those men. But the overwhelming majority of shepherds in our land have abandoned their calling and have become tongue-tied when it comes to abortion. And many of them justify their cold indifference by saying that, well, speaking up for the preborn will distract me from the gospel. As if speaking up for little girls and boys scheduled to die is a distraction from the gospel. Jesus spoke to this directly when he rebuked the disciples for this pernicious thinking, when he said, "Suffer the children to come to me. Don't hinder them." one view rescuing children from the abortionist knife as a distraction. Notice that no one ever says this about rescuing victims from sex trafficking or rescuing the homeless. Only the preborn are treated with such contempt. They're the only ones that we're ashamed of. The only ones that are apparently off limits. The church's refusal to speak up for the least of these has become our great scandal. I mean, think of it. Could the heroes of Hebrews chapter 11, David, Samson, Jephthah, Gideon, Barak, Samuel, the prophet, could they, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, who routed foreign armies, who administered justice, could they have imagined a day in America when the overwhelming majority of churches would go absolutely silent, when shepherds called by God to protect the whole flock, even those yet to be born, would instead hand them over, turn them over to the abortionist knife without so much as a whimper from the pulpit? What has happened to us? What has happened to us? We look back now with greater moral clarity at slavery and segregation in America, and we are embarrassed by it. It is a pockmark on the pages of our nation's history. We scorn the memory of those whose apathy and whose love for personal comfort constricted their circle of moral responsibility so tightly as to constrict that so that it would completely exclude their black brothers and sisters. But what about us? It is easy to comfortably remove by 150 plus years from slavery or 65 years from segregation to romanticize how we might have responded to the cruel and ruthless oppression of our black brothers and sisters had we lived back then. I've wondered it many times for myself. I was 3 years old in 1965 when those 600 marchers marched on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in March of 1965. And I wondered, would I have locked arms with them? Would I have marched with them? I'd like to think that I would have. But to be honest, I really don't know. They paid a dear price for it. That day is referred to as Bloody Sunday for a reason. They were met with fire hoses and horses and clubs. The truth is, I don't know what I would have done in March of 1965. Here's what I do know. When we will not speak up for the unborn in 2019, when there is thankfully still virtually no real cost for doing so, then we can know for absolute certain we would not have stood with our black brothers and sisters in 1965 when the cost for doing this was so exceedingly high. This is our civil rights movement. We are repeating history. And this is not just another issue any more than slavery was another issue in 1860. This is the defining moral issue of our day. Let me quote, and I'm bringing this to close, let me quote Frederick Douglass again, his book, My Bondage, My Freedom. If you haven't read it, I'm going to warn you, when you get to heaven, Peter's going to meet you at the gate, and if you haven't read this book, you don't get in. Okay, so go buy this book. It is a phenomenal book. He said this. He wrote of what he called the infernal character of slavery. The infernal character of slavery. And he pointed out that, the, quote, the slaveholder as well as the slave is the victim of the slave system. A man's character greatly takes its hue and shape from the form and color of things about him. I kind of already touched on that here tonight as I talked about the dehumanizing effects of abortion on the abortionist. But abortion is like that for the church as well. It has an infernal character about it that is slowly plundering the conscience of the church, leaving scores of pastors and Christians cold and indifferent toward the least of these. To borrow Douglas's words, the hue and the shape of our character as a church is being taken from the form and the color of abortion. Failure to respond to the trauma of abortion with fiery conviction and loving compassion is amputating our spirit and disfiguring the soul of the church. It is damaging our gospel witness. Indeed, no one is left untouched by the abortionist's knife. Being bound to Jesus Christ and to his gospel does not provide us refuge from the conflict over abortion. It demands our engagement. Love and compassion compel us to enter the conflict and to sacrifice on behalf of young mothers and those whose lives hang in the balance. But if our hearts are cold and unresponsive toward helpless children at their most vulnerable stage of development, if we can close off our hearts to vulnerable children, then we have closed off our hearts to God himself. Those are not my words. It was Christ himself who said, I tell you that what you did not do for least of these, you did not do for me. Of course, the Christian worldview protests all of this madness, doesn't it? Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, so from now on we regard no one from a worldly point of view. been said here before the event started, and then by Pastor Noel as he started the event, that we love these protesters outside. And we don't say that to be syrupy or disingenuous. I mean, granted, we don't have the kind of relationship that we have with our family members, but we genuinely love our enemies. We don't necessarily like them always. We don't necessarily find them always pleasant. But to be honest with you, when I walked in here tonight and saw them, my heart broke. I think there's probably some young ladies and some young men in that group, or older folks in that group, that are otherwise very compassionate people. Not necessarily stupid people or evil people. They're people like us that are confused on this issue. And maybe confused about bigger issues, like the gospel. That's my guess. We're called to love them. We're also called to stand up to be a voice for those who have no voice. Finally, in closing, because the 4-year-old girl from Arkansas is a minor, news outlets didn't publish her name, but you can be sure it's not it. God knows her. And she's precious to him. And hopefully someday this wounded little one will come to know Christ and the souls that he provides. And then she will sing with the hymn writer, "My name is graven on his hands. My name is written on his heart. I know that while in heaven he stands, no tongue can bid me thence depart." Is it possible for your church? By the way, I'm not assuming the worst of your church. In fact, I'm assuming the best of your church. I'm guessing you're here because your pastor's been involved in the planning of this. But I'll say it anyway. Is it possible that your local church, that every local church, could be a thundering, protective voice for preborn children, unashamed, and yet at the same time be a grace-extending community for those who had abortions? I think the answer is yes, if we believe in the power of the gospel that we claim to believe. Amen?
Amen.
God bless you. God bless you. You are doing good work in this community. This little fire that you have started is going to grow. So you're going to stoke it. And I'm coming back next year, I hope. I get invited back. I'll just go ahead and invite myself. I'm coming back next year. And this auditorium is going to be filled. Because we're going to bring this brother